She slammed the door like she was sealing off a chapter of her life. Her eyes didn't even flinch when I asked if she was serious. She just grabbed the last of her things, her favorite hoodie, a few framed photos from our vacations, and left as if she were stepping into some kind of rom-com sequel. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. That's never been my way. Instead, I just stood there watching as Savannah packed her drama into the back seat of a guy named Travis's Jeep. She didn't look back. Not once. And before she was even halfway down the block, she'd blocked me on everything. Phone, socials, even Spotify. As if silence would somehow erase what we had, or better yet, what she owed. But here's the thing about blocking someone. It only works when they're not the one holding the keys. Because while she was out there playing house with a new man, all wide-eyed and reckless, she forgot the essentials, the ones she never paid attention to when we were together. The water she took for granted. The lights she flipped on without thinking. The Wi-Fi she streamed her little escape fantasies on. All still in my name. 3 days passed. I let her have them. Let her bask in the illusion of a fresh start. I figured that was fair. Then I opened the app for our internet provider. One tap, and the Wi-Fi went dark. No buffering circle. No, "Are you still watching?" from Netflix. Just silence. The kind that creeps in when you're no longer being carried. The next morning I logged into the utility portal. Click, no water. Another portal, another click, goodbye electricity. And still nothing from her. No text, no call. I suppose she figured her little disappearing act meant I would too. She always did underestimate my quiet. It wasn't about revenge, not really. I wasn't trying to ruin her life. I was just unfunding it. And when the apartment went dark, literally, I imagine that's when it hit her. Not the guilt, not the regret. Savannah was never big on those. No, it was the inconvenience that shook her. The chill of the shower not running. The silence of a dead router. The weight of a phone she couldn't charge. And that was just the start. At first, I imagined she thought it was a glitch. Maybe the router needed a reset. Savannah always had this belief that everything technical could be solved by turning it off and back on again. So I pictured her pacing around that apartment, flipping switches, unplugging cords, asking Travis if he'd remembered to pay his part. That's the thing. She always thought someone else was handling it. But there was no one else this time. Just her. And a guy who had never once asked where the Wi-Fi came from. It didn't take long before Travis realized something was off, more than just the signal. He tried using his hotspot, but the reception in that building was terrible. That's why we'd sprung for the upgraded fiber connection in the first place. A little luxury she apparently assumed would follow her anywhere. I gave it another day. Then I logged into Hulu, changed the password, and logged out all devices. Netflix followed. Then Spotify. I didn't do it out of malice. I did it out of logic. Why would I keep paying for entertainment for someone who told me she was done? The moment she hit block, she made it clear she wanted nothing more from me. So I honored that. Thoroughly. Travis must have thought she had it all under control. But when his favorite playlist stopped working mid-set, and the screen went dark during whatever show they were binging, I can only imagine the look he gave her. "Didn't you say the utilities were in your name?" he must have asked. Maybe with a laugh at first, maybe not. And she probably said yes. Because lying came easier than truth with Savannah. She lived on borrowed confidence and half-baked stories. The water was next. Cold showers became no showers. Dishes stacked in the sink with no way to rinse them. The air turned stale with the kind of tension that makes even a tiny apartment feel like a pressure cooker. Travis wasn't used to that kind of discomfort. Neither was Savannah. She was always the kind of woman who needed her life temperature-controlled, filtered, and password-protected. By the time I cut the power, I knew I'd given her every chance to realize what she'd overlooked. But she hadn't texted, hadn't emailed, hadn't sent a single message through the mutual friends still foolish enough to be neutral. The silence was her choice. All I did was answer it with my own. That night, I got a notification. An unsuccessful attempt to reset the Wi-Fi account password. The email came through like a polite ping from the universe, reminding me who was still in charge. Savannah had forgotten one key detail. Everything was under my name because I had set it up that way. Years of shared living, planned billing, streamlined auto payments. I had built the infrastructure of her comfort. She'd simply moved into it. Now it was collapsing, not with explosions or screaming, matches, but with quiet surgical precision. Travis must have started asking the hard questions then. Maybe he checked his bank app and saw nothing had ever been charged to him. Maybe he pulled up the utility bills and realized his name wasn't on any of them. Maybe, just maybe, he started to wonder what else she hadn't mentioned. It's hard to stay in love when your phone dies and there's no outlet to save it. And what did Savannah do? Probably what she always did. Spiraled. She wasn't built for hardship. She was built for curated Instagram stories and scented candles. Without running water and working power, she couldn't even pretend. Me? I spent that evening reading. No TV, no phone scrolling. Just a cup of tea and a hardcover novel in a home that was calm, lit, and entirely paid for. By me. There's a kind of revenge that doesn't yell. It just lets them feel the absence of what they once ignored. It took them 4 days to realize this wasn't temporary. By then, Savannah had probably cycled through all 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, panic, and whatever came after panic when your phone won't charge and the fridge starts to smell. Travis had clearly lost patience. The charm he wore like cologne when she first moved in had faded into something more practical, more demanding. There's nothing like a power outage to strip people down to who they really are. I imagine the apartment was silent that night, save for Savannah rifling through drawers, digging for old paperwork, hoping she'd find some forgotten account in her name. But there wouldn't be any, because she never handled that part of the relationship. I did. The Wi-Fi, the water, the power, the streaming, each one was an invisible thread she didn't realize tethered her comfort to my presence. And when those threads snapped, her new life unraveled with them. That's when the text started, just not to me. She tried mutual friends first, the kind of people who stay out of drama but still love to pass it along. I got a few polite messages. Hey man, not trying to get in the middle, but Savannah's asking about the Wi-Fi. She says she can't get a hold of you. No kidding. The thing is, I didn't ignore her because I was angry. I ignored her because she made it clear I was no longer needed. I simply acted accordingly. She thought ghosting me meant closure. What she didn't realize was that I'm not the kind of man you can block and forget. I don't shout, I don't beg. I file things away, neatly, like utility bills and betrayal. Travis, by this point, must have started packing his mental bags, if not his physical ones. He'd signed up for a spontaneous romance, not a logistical nightmare. He thought he was inheriting a woman reborn. Instead, he got someone tangled in the leftovers of a life she never fully understood. And when Savannah finally tried to call? Too late. I had blocked her too. Fair is fair, but I wasn't without mercy. That night, I printed a letter. Not a text, not an email. A physical letter addressed to her by hand and sealed in a plain envelope. In it I wrote, "You blocked me, so I assumed you didn't want my support anymore. Utilities disconnected. Best of luck paying your own way. No anger, no accusations, just facts. A reminder that support is a privilege, not a background service." I dropped the envelope in the mail the next morning. No return address. Just a clean end to a story she thought she controlled. That was the last time I had anything to say to Savannah Cole. The next move was hers, if she could make it with a dead phone and no lights on. By the end of the week, Savannah stopped pretending everything was fine. The facade cracked in small, private ways. The makeup stayed in the drawer. Her hair, usually styled into something casually perfect, began to fall flat. The clothes changed, from Instagram-worthy outfits to oversized hoodies that still smelled like our old place. Funny how comfort works when you no longer have any. Travis wasn't talking much, anymore. At first, he'd been sympathetic, cracking jokes about first-world problems and trying to reset routers he didn't understand. But that charm had a shelf life. It expired right around the time his protein shakes went warm in the fridge and his gym clothes couldn't be washed. Cold showers weren't quirky anymore. They were miserable. The man who once called her exciting now called her a mess. The conversation shifted. What do you mean you don't have the account info? I thought you said this was your place. You didn't even think to change the bills. Savannah, to her credit, tried. She called the utility companies, sat on hold for hours, tried to sweet-talk her way into access. But every time they asked, "Are you the account holder?" she had to say no. And every time the answer was the same, "We can't help you." Eventually, she did the thing I'd been waiting for. She typed my number in, but when she hit send, she didn't get a ringing tone. She got a mechanical voice, saying what I couldn't be bothered to. "This number is no longer available." I wasn't angry when I blocked her. I just didn't see the point in staying connected to someone who only reached out when the lights went off. Emotionally, that had been the state of our relationship for a while. Now, the apartment just matched it. She spent the next night in darkness, no streaming shows to distract her, no music to fill the silence. Just her, Travis, and the awkward tension of two people realizing they were not in a love story. They were in the aftermath of one. I suspect he slept on the couch, if he slept there at all. And that's how it ends, isn't it? Not with fireworks. Not with shouting or slamming doors, but with the slow, suffocating realization that she walked out of something stable for something make-believe. She traded a well-built life for the fantasy of something more exciting. But fantasy doesn't pay bills. And now that reality had come knocking, cold, dark, and overdue, there was no one left to answer the door for her. Savannah always thought she could reinvent herself on a whim, that if she just moved into a new space, found a new man, and changed her number, the past wouldn't follow. What she forgot was that I was the infrastructure, and without me, the life she was so eager to build had no power source. Savannah didn't try to call again. I like to think she sat there, staring at her screen, stunned by those 5 words. "This number is no longer available." For someone who believed silence was a weapon, she'd just discovered it could also be a sentence. Final, absolute, and completely outside her control. The apartment was still dark. The smell of spoiled food probably hung in the air, and that sticky feeling you get when the air stops circulating had likely started to seep into the walls. There's a difference between choosing a low-maintenance lifestyle and being forced into one. She was learning that now, through cold showers, candlelit dinners with no heat, and a partner who was slowly realizing he'd inherited someone else's unpaid debts. Travis left that weekend. He didn't slam the door. He just packed his bag and walked out, the way people do when they've made a quiet decision they don't feel the need to explain. Maybe he left a note, maybe he didn't. Either way, she was alone, and for once she couldn't post her misery for sympathy or spin it into some empowering anecdote. The lights were off. The Wi-Fi was dead. There was no one to impress, and nowhere to upload the lie. Meanwhile, my life was calm. Not happy in the overly bright, saccharine way people expect you to be after a breakup. Just calm. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. I didn't have to fund someone's fantasy life while they treated mine like a backup plan. I drank my tea hot, read by the soft glow of a lamp I paid for, and listened to jazz at a volume that suited me. The silence wasn't empty. It was mine. A few days later, a letter arrived, handwritten. I recognized her penmanship immediately. Curved, feminine, a little dramatic in the way the S's swooped like they were trying to sell you something. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Whatever she had to say, it would be a plea, an apology dressed in justifications. Maybe even a request to talk, but we already did, in our own way. She said her part when she walked out, packed up, and hit block. I said mine when I hit disconnect. There's power in not responding, not because you want to hurt someone, but because they no longer have the right to your energy. Savannah wasn't just asking for electricity or internet. She was asking to be reconnected to something she severed, on her terms, but she forgot. You don't get to burn the bridge and complain about the cold wind. So I tossed the letter into the drawer where I keep old receipts. It felt fitting, just another unpaid invoice from a past life I no longer funded. And as the sky outside dimmed into a soft amber dusk, I turned the page of my book, took a slow sip of tea, and smiled. Sometimes peace looks a lot like revenge, only quieter.